been months in the making, but apparently that invitation from the White House from President Joe Biden, that invitation to visit the White House to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has come about in a conversation that the two had this evening, which was the first call between the leaders in 4 months. It came just before Israel's President Isaac Herzog is to depart for a trip to Washington, where he is set to meet President Biden in the White House tomorrow, speak to a joint session of Congress Wednesday before continuing on to the UN. Now, shadowing both this evening's discussion between Biden and Netanyahu and Herzog's U.S. trip is Israel's fierce domestic abuse over the government's judicial reforms. Owen Alterman, that invitation, it looks like that long-awaited invitation to the White House has finally come for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Looks like it. Two caveats, Calev. First of all, we've gotten the readout from the Israeli side, have not yet gotten it from the American side. It would be unusual, okay, for the Israeli readout to state this as a fact when it wasn't actually presented as a fact. So I think we can put that one to the side. A nuance here. The precise words of the readout are not necessarily that he invited Netanyahu to the White House. He invited Netanyahu to a visit soon in the United States. So it could potentially be, for example, on the sidelines of the opening of the UN General Assembly in September, but not giving Netanyahu the picture in the Oval Office. Or maybe yes. Obviously, we have to wait and see what comes to the White House and what develops over the next few weeks. But yes, according to the Israeli Prime Minister's office, this certainly is the lead. Joe Biden invited Netanyahu to the United States, and they will have some kind of meeting there, the two of them in person on American soil. And that, of course, is something that has not happened up until now, and that has been a real aberration from decades of practice in the U.S.-Israel relationship, and certainly has gotten a lot of attention, certainly here in Israel.
Right. Now, we have to also look at the context here, because certainly many serious issues for the two leaders to discuss from the Israeli perspective, the threat of Iran and the nuclear agreement above all. But going into this conversation, a lot of reporting that President Biden was intending to speak with Netanyahu about U.S. concerns, or his administration's concerns, over these judicial reforms, which are facing a crucial turning point or passage in this coming week.
Right, and it did come up in the call. That is in the Israeli readout. Of course, as is common practice in these readouts, Calev, it's in the Israeli readout with the Prime Minister's office's version of what was discussed. But the topic was discussed. Netanyahu explained it to Biden, according to the readout from the Israeli side. And Netanyahu told Joe Biden that after the reasonableness bill passes next week in the Israeli parliament, so another affirmation from Netanyahu that he wants that bill to get to the finish line during the Knesset summer recess, which will start by the end of the month. During that summer recess, Netanyahu told Biden that he hopes to bring about some kind of agreement, broad agreement in the society on the rest of the process. So Netanyahu committing A, to getting that bill through the Israeli parliament, and B, to talks during the summer recess, although not necessarily beyond that. So it certainly came up, but again, that's the Israeli Prime Minister's office's take on the discussion. We have to wait and see how the White House describes that discussion and what language they use to describe, Calev, what must have been Biden's significant concerns about that bill and about the entire process and the protest movement evolving around us here in Israel.
Right. And if you want more great content like that from I-24 News, just hit the subscribe button. It's as easy as that.